Get ready. Helena Hustle is now live. Here, we will showcase successful leaders in business, athletics, healthcare, and all things that make Helena a great place to live. Join Dr. Daniel Bridge, owner of Endurance Chiropractic, as he searches out amazing individuals who are making a tremendous difference in this place we call home. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be inspired with the Helena Hustle podcast.
Connie, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's good to see you.
Yeah, you too. So Connie, Roope owns Prickly Pear Quilts. Is that what it's called?
Yep, Prickly Pear Quilts.
Oh, I nailed it.
Helena, Montana.
Yeah. Let's get to know you, Connie. Let's start with your 2 truths and a lie.
Okay. Well, one of my truths is I was an award-winning majorette by the time I was in 6th grade, baton twirler.
Oh.
I won a lot of awards and trophies.
Okay.
I also had a horse most of my life growing up, and one of my favorite horses' name was Tony when I bought him. And being a romantic young girl with a horse, I changed his name to Prince Antonio.
Ooh, fancy.
And I wrote an essay about him and won a scholarship.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah.
This is not going to be easy unless the third one's obvious.
And the third one is I was born in Chicago, Illinois, South Side, and raised there.
That's the lie.
Oh,
is that right?
Yeah, you're right. How did you know? I should have put a little bit more time into that one.
Well, you said Illinois, and I feel like Illinois. A Chicago person would not say that.
I was born there, though.
You were?
I was, South Side, yeah.
Wait, so what was the lie? You weren't raised there?
I wasn't raised there.
Okay.
I kind of felt like if I stuck a little bit close to a truth,
I might
wondered. Pull it off a little.
I was going to say you had a horse, but his name was not Tony. But
nope.
But so you were born in South Side, Chicago.
Yeah.
Lived there for how long?
I think I was like about 6 months when we moved.
And where did you move to?
Oh my gosh, you're going to really get me in trouble right now.
Did you go all over?
No, I grew up in California.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
And what brought you to Montana?
I married Doug.
Okay.
He was born and raised in Helena.
Nice.
And I came here when I was 20. So I've been here associated with Montana longer than where I grew up.
There you go. It's your new adopted home.
Yeah.
And so I want to get into you come in here, but let's go back to the other 2 cool things. So did you say you won a scholarship for your essay on Prince Antonio?
I did. I didn't accept it. I was,
How did that work out?
It was just a scholarship essay. Mm-hmm. It's been a long time now.
Did you submit it to a school, or was it a school competition and then?
Yeah, actually my teacher did. Uh-huh. So it was one of those ones in English where your teacher says, I really like this essay. Uh-huh. And she submitted it to.
She did.
Yeah.
Do you still have it?
I don't know. I had the award letter for a lot of years, but I don't know if I do anymore.
You know, it'd be really cool is if you find it, and before this podcast airs, we could put it in the show notes.
Well, maybe.
And people could read your essay.
Well, the essay. Yeah. Isn't that sad? I know I don't have that.
Oh, you know you don't have the essay.
I know
Gotcha.
I kept to me, it was just a school project. I wrote an essay and my teacher submitted it. And, at that point, it was just kind of like not that big of a deal for me. And, funny things later in life that you kind of look back on. But I was always a writer and, I still do a lot of that for the business.
Do you?
I don't know, you write for the rest of your life.
Sure.
Right? So,
yeah. I'm looking forward to getting into that too. So, and then a majorette. That's a new word for me.
Baton twirler. Yeah.
6th grade?
Yep.
Did you start? When did you start?
Well, I had 2 neighbor girls that were majorettes, and they were high school age. And of course, I would just idolize them. And so they would be practicing, and I would just go over with them, and I just started practicing. I bet I was, 5, 6 years old when I started hanging out with them, and they would let me, they were really sweet and let me hang out with them. Yeah. And then in California, it's kind of a big deal. Parades are a big deal there. You do a lot of competitions, a lot of, it's just a different, I don't know if it's still like that, but when I was growing up, it was. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen baton twirlers on TV, and I'm always blown away at the skill. And I just got to imagine it's hours and hours of practicing these different moves,
Yeah.
tricks, whatever.
Well, and it's like anything. When you're really young, you pick things up so quickly. And for years, my parents had my baton. When I came up here, I didn't bring a bunch of that kind of stuff. And then in one of their moves, I don't know what they did with it, but to this day, I wish I still had my baton,
Yeah.
And then I gave baton lessons when I was
Oh.
in high school. I had a group of little girls that I gave baton lessons to. So I twirled for many, many years. I can still do it a little.
Can you?
Yeah.
We'll
I'm
include a
not
little
like,
clip in the show notes.
yeah.
So
I'm not like I was, but yeah.
at what point did you stop being competitive with that?
Well, that's kind of a sad story.
Oh,
I
we don't
think.
have to get into it.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we skip it?
No, I'm okay to
Okay.
talk about it. I think it's kind of important. But my parents, we moved to a different town, and at that age, you were not allowed to try out for the varsity, as a freshman. And I had went to the lady who, I don't even know what her position was, but I asked her if I could try out, and I showed her I could twirl, and she goes, yeah. And so she brought all the girls together, and so I did really well, and they decided that I could not still be part of the group, and then I was bullied. Terrible. I mean, the bullying I went through over it, and I gave it up.
Because of that.
Because of that.
So why did they say you couldn't be on after they said that they would give you a shot?
Well, she brought the girls in to discuss it, and it's just kids sometimes aren't very nice. Yeah.
And then, wow, go ahead.
Then
sorry.
we moved back. It was so bad that my parents actually sold and moved back to the town we had lived in. And I just never picked up the baton again. I then became the girl who, it's called a letter carrier. We had these, the name of your school. We had that a line of us would carry the letters to your school, and so I just kind of transferred into that.
That is sad.
Yeah, it is. I kind of look back on it, and if I could tell my younger self anything, I'd say get back on that horse and just do it again.
So who was doing the bullying?
The girls that were part of the team.
That's so sad.
Yeah, it is. And I remember my folks just saying, Connie, you just go for it. And, you just, when you're that age, it's kind of tough. And you're in a town that you, at an age where it's already tough enough. And yeah, so bullying's been around a long time.
New, right?
Long time. Yeah.
It's different. I mean, I'm sure there's still the same old tricks, but now with social media, I'm glad I didn't have that.
Me too. I really, really am. I can't even imagine. My kids didn't have social media when they were growing up either. And sometimes I think about my grandkids. I'm just like, I'm hopeful they don't have phones for a while. I'm hopeful there's some changes toward that, because I'm sure it's even so much worse.
Yeah. I remember getting slammed into a locker. This kid, he was big kid, a year above me, and I'm just in my locker, and wham, smashed. And
for no reason.
reason.
Just, I don't know. Kids, I don't know. It's an interesting thing, but yeah, I often wondered what else I would have done with it. But I went on and did other things, so life is okay.
Sure.
But it was sure a learning process, and I was never a bully.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So yeah.
And then where did you meet Doug?
California.
What was he doing out there?
Well, he had Doug's went to school twice. He had went to school for welding, and his dream job was to be an underwater welder on the oil rigs. And so he went out there, and he was working on the oil rigs. He hadn't quite broke into, the water aspect of it, because he was still pretty young. And then this was back in like 80, the oil industry kind of bottomed out. And it's funny because a lot of people think of Texas with oil, but California paid way more than Texas did.
Okay.
And we were young, didn't know what we wanted to do. That kind of oil work is actually pretty dangerous. And so Doug had a motorcycle, and we just kind of started driving and camping.
Wow.
And I came here and met his family, and I fell in love with Montana. I don't think he ever thought he would come back here, but we did. And we went out to Seattle for a while, and he went back to school to be a software engineer. And the rest is history. We came back. We raised our kids here. And
What year did you move back for good here?
92.
Okay.
1992, yeah.
And how many kids do you guys have?
Two
Okay.
boys. Mm-hmm. Yep. I have a 40-year-old and an almost 38-year-old.
Nice.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then you moved back here in 92.
Mm-hmm.
When did you get into quilting, or when did you start Prickly Pear Quilts?
Well, I always had an interest in quilting, and I had tried to make a quilt years earlier. I had gotten my mother-in-law's sewing machine, and of course it wasn't working well, and I was cutting out jeans. And back then you went to the library to get books, and I didn't find a really good book on quilting. And so I just without the right tools, I got kind of discouraged, and I didn't do it. And then my sister-in-law, and I did a lot of garment sewing, if you can call it that. We kind of made up our own patterns. But I did a lot of creative sewing when I was younger and through the years. And then did cross stitch and just a variety of different craft type of things. And then my sister-in-law got into quilting, and I was like, I want to do that. So I started with her, and I went down and bought a super inexpensive machine that really was a nightmare to use. And I learned quickly that your tools are very important in this game. And so I knew I enjoyed it, and I got a good machine, and the rest is history. And so I did it a lot while I worked, other jobs, and had always wanted my own business. And so
had you always been like an entrepreneur at heart?
Yeah. My folks owned businesses growing up. And so I don't mean to sound cliche-ish, but I literally stood on a box to run a register. And my dad had one of those crank ones, and you had to push really hard on the buttons. And there was no, the computer added nothing. There was no computer. It didn't add anything for you. And my folks owned a sporting goods store. It was really small when they started. And back then, I don't know if you can do this even in California anymore, but they had live bait. And I didn't mind some of the live bait, but some of it, like the crickets and stuff, I really wasn't into. And my dad was genius. I remember I swear he coined one-stop shop long before I ever heard it anywhere else. And I can remember being young, because I always worked for him, and being so embarrassed because he brought toilet paper into the store. And
to sell?
Yes. And I was just mortified that I would have to ring that up. And, and then he brought other stuff, and I would be like, Dad. And he said, Connie, you want this to be a one-stop shop where they can come in and get everything they need. And so, and they were really smart with marketing. And now I look back at it and think, gosh, they were really smart.
Yeah.
But then I was just terribly embarrassed by some of the stuff they did. But I always had jobs that had an entrepreneurial aspect to them, even in teaching. And so, I always wanted to be. And I'd always say to my mom, will you help me start a business? And my folks' business it was open 7 days a week, and they were open from like 6 a.m. until 11 at night.
Wow.
And they worked really, really hard. And I know it was hard on my mom, because it really impacted family life. And my mom would say no. She just was not going to help me start a business. So I didn't start one until my kids were grown. And I'm really glad now, owning a business, that I didn't, because I got to be a large part of what they did, and for me personally.
How long did you teach for?
Oh gosh, I started in my 20s. 15 16 years.
And
I taught mostly college level.
Okay.
Out in Seattle, you had to have English as a second language and, you know, to have your certification. And I taught, it was funny, the college I taught for, I remember when Microsoft was really coming into its own, and we were in Seattle, and they came in and certified us, and it was just, you know, just a new day. It was a lot of fun. And so I was one of the early ones teaching computer literacy and speed writing and communications and, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Cool.
So yeah, it was fun.
So you taught for 15 years, your kids were grown, and then how did Prickly Pear Quilts get started?
Well, this isn't the business I wanted to start probably, but as my love for quilting grew and the more I did it, I started researching, you know, putting a business plan together for starting a quilt store. And then someone I knew started one, and I was like, oh, there's so many in town. You know, I just kind of let it go. And then she put it up for sale soon afterwards. And she was a traveling nurse working in just a computer aspect of it. And I went and talked to her, and it was just kind of turnkey for me.
Oh, nice.
At that point, I was actually the executive director of a youth group, of a youth program. I had kind of transitioned. I was ready for a change. And so I must have taught longer than 15 years. But anyways, I went to her and we negotiated. I bought it. And when I bought it, it was just very small. It was on the walking mall next to the Panhandler, and there was very little fabric in it, no sewing machines. But it was a nice, you know, starting off place. And had primarily Civil War fabrics. And so
Sorry, what does that mean?
Well, fabrics for that era that kind of depict the Civil War era, you know, the things that, clothing they wore and just
Why
fabric.
was that what she was selling?
She liked it. There was, you know, there's been periods of time that certain fabric has, you know, like there was 30s prints and modern, I don't know, just different times that it was popular or kind of the thing. And there was a period of time that was very popular with all of us. And so that was her love initially. I don't really have a genre. Like I like everything. And so after I bought it, I just started bringing in a wide array of things. And I think you see that reflected in my store, that I just have a lot of things, different fabric styles and colors. And, you know, I just, whether I want a particular quilt or not, I may still want to work with it and create it. And if it's not something that I want to keep or use, I'll put it away. And I know they usually find their person that I end up giving them to, you know, and so that kind of works out. And then we make a lot of samples for the store and things like that.
You make samples? Sample
so like
quilts?
So one of the things we do is we sell, in addition to fabric, we sell kits. When I started quilting, there were no kits.
Okay.
You just bought fabric and you bought patterns and you went from there. And then someone came up with the idea, probably Moda, of putting kits together. And that's where you take a pattern and you cut the yardage they need in a certain
So it's quilt
material.
in a box, everything they need.
And then at the store, we'll make a sample of what's in that box and hang it on the wall.
Oh, cool.
If you ever walk in my store, you'll see all kinds of quilts hanging up, and that's samples of things that we have for sale in the store.
I have been in your store.
Yes,
It's
you
very
have.
well lit and beautiful, but I need to pay attention
it's
next time to
okay.
the samples.
Yeah.
So how long were you on the walking mall before you moved to your current location?
I want to say 6 years. 5 or 6, because I think I've been in this store 6 or 7.
And you've got a lot of good space where you're at now.
I do.
And where is your store?
So I'm on the corner of Montana and Cedar,
Mm-hmm.
and the complex, Dinner's Done Right is in that complex, and Helena Hair and Just Tapped. It's kind
Right
of
across from Woody's car
right
wash.
across from Woody's. Yeah, it's kind of cool because we're a totally woman-owned business complex.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
Cool.
good group of ladies. We were pretty active before COVID in doing different events and things together, but some of that kind of got a little challenging with COVID, and we haven't really gotten that up and running again, but I think we will at some point. Yeah. So all really neat businesses. We all are totally different. It's just kind of a fun little complex. Yeah.
And then tell us a little bit more about Prickly Pear Quilts.
Well, you can find us at www.pricklypearquilts.com. No E in prickly. It's just Prickly. So people always ask me, why Prickly Pear Quilts or Prickly Pear? A lot of people from out of town especially, and they don't realize that prickly pears grow here. They're much smaller than what you might see in Arizona, but they do grow here. And there's a lot of things named prickly pear in our area. But it was a sweet little name. I can't take credit for it. The woman who started the business named it, but I loved the name and kept it. We do a variety. We do classes. We offer classes. We have events. We have a really fun event coming up right now. I think it's kind of revolutionary for the garment industry, but instead of paper patterns, you actually have a camera that you can do your measurements and type them into a software program, and you can buy a pattern and upload it, and then there's a camera that shines down, and you put your fabric and all the pieces reflect onto the fabric, and you cut it out. There's no paper pattern. And it's super easy to do.
It's so high tech.
And the measurements are very involved, like, around your arm. I mean, way more than the normal paper pattern. And they're saved in there so you can tweak them if you ever need to, or it's a lot of fun. So we have that event coming on in October.
When's that?
October 6th and 7th, I believe. I do have it. It is on my website. No, it's the 4th and 5th. Sorry about that. October 4th and 5th.
Do people just drop in, or do they need to sign up
Nope,
ahead
they
of
need
time?
to sign up.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
And they
very
can do
cool,
that on
and
the
they'll be
website?
using sewing machines and sergers, and you don't have to be a garment sewer. I mean, there's a lot of instruction. We have an educator coming in from out of town. We at the store, we sell FOF and Juki sewing machines.
Okay.
And so we do a lot of events associated with that. We just had a FOF event where we created these monsters out of minky fabric, which are really kind of cute. And we did this kind of tech bag for putting your cords and different things away. And so we're always, bringing in event type of activities. And then we have our regular sewing classes and quilting. I teach a beginning quilt class twice a year. I've taught it for a long time, taught a lot of people. It's a lot of fun.
Is it the same days every year? Like spring, fall, or?
Yep, it's fall. I have one starting September 28th, I think it is this year. It's always on the last Thursday of September.
Full?
No, I think we have a couple of slots left.
Because this will run before then. So maybe if somebody
we do. We have a couple of classes or a couple of slots open. Normally this class sells out before we even get it advertised. We usually will find that we might have 1 or 2 classes left. It's kind of funny. It's a fun class. And I have a lot of people who take my classes over. I have 3 ladies in this class that took my last class, and they just want to take it again. So that's really nice. And so that happens in October, in September, always the last Thursday in September, and then the last Thursday in January. So I do like a fall and a winter.
Cool.
So we have that class. We do everything from teaching people how to make t-shirt quilts, bags. We have a pretty cool class coming up. It's actually this week. and it's called thread painting, thread art. And it's where you take either a quilt that you've done and you embellish it with scraps of, it can be satin, it can be threads, it can be yarn, it can be all kinds of things. And you can kind of make it cool from that. Or you can take just a whole cloth, meaning just a piece of fabric, and you can use different, you can use silk and satin and things to create like a mountain scene or a bird, or I mean, it's just really kind of cool. So for people who are really like to design and go outside the box, it's
kind of express their creativity.
Yeah, it's a fun event, and that starts Thursday. She's going to come in and kind of work with people on materials they need to bring in, kind of see what they're going to work on and help them plan. And then the classes all day Saturday and half of Sunday. But that's really kind of a fun one too. And then, we do all kinds of different classes. A lot of the classes are taught by staff, by Prickly Pear Quilt staff. And then we also have people that are external, that are customers, are people who approach us and say, I have an idea for a class. And we're always open to people who want to teach a class. We don't think we have the corner on all the best ideas. And it's kind of fun to see what people come up with, and kind of keeps things fresh, and we like that. So lots happening. We don't teach a lot in the summer. We're in Montana, and people want to be outside.
Right.
And there's not a huge demand for summer classes. And it's nice for us to take a break.
Yeah.
Then we're refreshed come fall, and we're excited, to teach again and things like that. So we normally do events like before Christmas. I normally do like a fun event where we have demonstrations happening. We usually have hors d'oeuvres and fun things happening there, and discounts, and the hors d'oeuvre thing's been kind of weird. I think it was 21. Because I did charcuterie boards before they were really kind of a big thing, and I think it was 21 when we were really opened again. I had someone come in with gloves and kind of serve people instead of opening that up. So we've since COVID had to kind of redesign how we do some of the stuff that we do, but we're still kind of trying to offer the same fun activities and different things like that. So lots of things happening. We have things change in our store all the time because we sell a lot of fabric. We sell out of a lot of fabric. So we always have new stuff coming in. Probably every 3 months we have a pretty good turnover or addition to things.
Very cool.
So,
You've been in business for how long?
12 years.
Okay. That's exciting.
Yeah, I can't believe it's already been 12
I
years.
bet. Yeah. And I mean, you've expanded, you've moved to a different location, and you've got so much cool things going on, and what a great service for people in and around Helena to be able to get their quilting supplies, but then also participate, learn, have the social aspect, get some hors d'oeuvres. Really cool.
One of the things we offer is a Tuesday open sew. It's pretty full right now, but that's where people come in. There's no charge for it. They can just come in and sew together.
Oh, wow.
It's not a class. It's not a formal situation. So they can come in and work on projects. And the group that's in there now has been there a while, and they take care of one another. They have a phone tree, and they have Christmas potlucks together. They share, they learn from one another. I think that's one thing about quilting is it's a community. And I do believe that women love sports too. I love sports. I love football. I do.
Nice.
I'm a diehard football fan. But I think that sometimes women and men, because more and more men quilt all the time. There's a lot of angles that are very similar to woodworking, etc. and they like design, but I think there's somewhat of that need for community.
Right.
You know, we don't have that the way we did in the early years when
Exactly.
we had to work so hard
Right.
for just the basic necessities. And I do believe that quilting provides that for a lot of women. And I think it also provides a stress release. I see a lot of nurses and teachers that are quilters. You know, I think it gives people a community, and I think it gives them a place to see something tangible. In a world right now where everything is so automated, we don't always see the results of our labor. And, you know, with quilting, you see something.
Wow.
And I think that's really nice. But yeah, the open sew is really a lot of fun. And I always say to my staff that we are people's cheers, especially when I started, the internet was not hardly used for purchasing things. It was a little bit, and that was just 12 years ago,
Right.
but not to the level it is now.
Sure.
And then COVID came, and there was still that certain amount of people who didn't want to be online, but they kind of were forced to be, and learned, well, that's not so bad, and have learned to shop online. So we also offer online. I have an online store also, and we do pretty well with that. So, you know, and we still have people that since COVID that are, maybe their health isn't great, and they'll buy online. We still offer the service of running it out to their car,
Oh, wow.
or, you know, those types of things. But yeah, so there's just all kinds of
That's
services.
nice.
It is a great location, and I love my building. I love my lighting in there.
It's
The
so
lighting,
bright and nice.
it's so wonderful
Yeah.
for fabric and, you know, picking out colors. That was the only thing. I loved my building downtown, but the lighting was just hard. It was a tough thing. And so this is really nice. There's never a big enough space for me.
Sure.
If I get a building, I'm going to fill it.
You do a good job with your store. It
We
looks really
try.
nice.
My manager helps a lot with that. She's really good at kind of, she's good with the engineering and with the space allocation, and I'm the fluffer. So it
Yeah.
kind of works out well between the two of us. We
It's
complement each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you know, we are people's cheers. A lot of times, you know, I had someone whose spouse went through a real devastating experience health-wise, and we were like one of the first places she came after the whole hospital and the whole experience itself, and broke into tears the minute she came in, because we're kind of, that's what happens. You know, we are their cheers.
Yeah.
You know, people walk in, we're like, hey, you
right.
know, I mean, you know, we don't really have Norm, but we have a lot of other people. So yeah.
So you mentioned this earlier, but can you say one more time where people can find you?
Yes. They can find us online at pricklypearquilts.com.
And then your phone number?
406-442-7327. And again, we're on the corner of Cedar and Montana Avenue, and in that business complex. If you're stuck at the light heading north on Montana, you can't miss us. And
Okay.
our sign is nice and lit up
Yeah,
at night.
it's a beautiful sign.
Yeah.
As you heard, Connie's got some classes, so you still have time to sign up for those. Maybe not. They go quick. But thanks again, Connie, for the service you provide here and for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, love to spend time with you.
Yes,
It was great.
thank
Thanks,
you.
Daniel. Daniel's great.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Helena Hustle Podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Once again, thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you in the next episode of the Helena Hustle Podcast.